Long ago, in the magnificent kingdom of Persia, in a capital city called Shushan, Susa, there lived a young Jewish woman named Hadassah, known to the world as Esther. Orphaned at a young age, Esther was raised by her older cousin Mordecai, a devout and wise man of the tribe of Benjamin. They lived quietly among their people, the Jewish exiles, who had been carried away from their homeland after the destruction of the first temple in Jerusalem. Though Esther lived far from the land of her ancestors, her heart was faithful to the ways of her people and to the one true God. She was known for her beauty, not only in appearance, but also in kindness, gentleness, and grace. No one knew that this humble, faithful woman would one day be chosen to fulfill a destiny greater than anyone could imagine. At that time, the powerful King Ahasuerus ruled over 127 provinces, from India to Ethiopia. He was wealthy and proud, known for hosting grand feasts to display his riches and power. One day, after an argument with his former queen, Vashti, the king sought a new queen. He sent out a royal decree to gather the most beautiful young women of the empire into his palace, and Esther was among them. Esther did not boast or seek attention. She followed the advice of Mordecai, who told her to keep her Jewish identity a secret for now. She won favor in the eyes of everyone who saw her, and when the time came, the king chose Esther to be his queen, placing the royal crown upon her head. Yet even as queen, Esther did not forget who she was or where she came from. She continued to listen to Mordecai and prayed to God in secret. Her soul remained humble and faithful. Meanwhile, a man named Haman, a descendant of Agag, the enemy of the Jews from generations past, rose to power as the king's highest advisor. Proud and filled with hatred, Haman demanded that everyone bow down to him. But Mordecai refused, for he would bow only to God. Haman was furious. Learning that Mordecai was a Jew, he devised a cruel plan, not just to punish Mordecai, but to destroy all the Jews in the empire. He cast lots, called Purim, to decide the day of their annihilation, and convinced the king to sign a decree allowing the destruction of every Jewish man, woman, and child. The decree spread across the provinces like wildfire, and grief gripped the hearts of the Jewish people. They fasted, wept, and prayed. Mordecai tore his garments in mourning and stood at the gates of the palace, sending word to Queen Esther, urging her to act. When Esther received Mordecai's message, she was filled with fear. To enter the king's presence without being summoned was forbidden and could result in death unless the king extended his golden scepter. But Mordecai's words stirred something deep within her. "Do not imagine that you alone will escape in the king's house. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to royalty for such a time as this?" With trembling yet unshakable courage, Esther responded, "Go, gather all the Jews in Shushan. Fast for me for 3 days. I and my maidens will also fast. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish." After 3 days of fasting and prayer, Esther adorned herself in royal garments and entered the inner court. The king looked upon her with favor and extended his scepter. She did not rush into her plea. Instead, with great wisdom, she invited the king and Haman to a private banquet. At the first banquet, she simply asked them to return the next day for a second banquet. That night, the king could not sleep. He asked for the royal records to be read aloud and discovered that Mordecai had once saved his life from an assassination plot, yet had never been rewarded. In a twist of irony, the king asked Haman, who had come to request Mordecai's execution, what should be done for someone the king wants to honor. Believing the king meant him, Haman described a grand reward. The king then ordered him to do it all for Mordecai. At the second banquet, with the king and Haman seated, Esther finally revealed her secret. "If I have found favor in your eyes, O king, I ask for my life and the lives of my people, for we have been sold to be destroyed." Shocked, the king asked, "Who is this man who dares to do such a thing?" Esther answered,
"The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman."
Furious, the king stepped away in rage. When he returned, he saw Haman pleading at Esther's couch and, misinterpreting the scene, ordered Haman's immediate execution on the very gallows he had built for Mordecai. Though Haman was gone, the king's decree still stood. Persian law could not be revoked, but the king allowed Esther and Mordecai to write a new decree, one that gave the Jews the right to defend themselves against their enemies. On the 13th of Adar, the day meant for their destruction, the Jews rose and triumphed over their foes. Great joy and relief spread across the kingdom. Mordecai was appointed to a high position in the court, and Esther was celebrated as a queen of courage. To remember this victory, the holiday of Purim was established, a day of joy, feasting, gift-giving, and remembering how God delivered his people through the bravery of Queen Esther. The story of Queen Esther is more than a tale of palace intrigue. It is a sacred story of providence, identity, and courage. Esther risked everything, not for her own gain, but for her people. She stood in the gap, trusting that God had placed her exactly where she was for such a time as this. Her legacy lives on in every person who chooses faith over fear, truth over silence, and light over darkness.